right, y'all. We're gonna move forward. I hope that everybody is having a great day. Today is actually Sunday, and it was a pretty rough night for me. I was not feeling well, but I was determined. I put myself on a schedule for trying to get the things that I want to record accomplished, and I wanted to come back today and do part two of Don't Date While You're in Your Unhealthy Place. I want to, or what did I say? Don't date. Let me look. Don't date in your broken space. That was the name of the first video. And basically, I said, heal before you deal. In other words, make sure you got your healing before you jump back out there. So, oftentimes, people will move right from one relationship right into the next. And unless you are fairly mature, like that does work for some people, but the average person it doesn't, because typically you bring whatever the residue or the baggage is from that previous marriage or relationship into your new one. And if you've been watching me, or if you follow my channel, you will know that my channel is for people who are typically around the age of 50 and above. I would say 40 and above, and also you have a Christian mindset, and you have a desire to get married possibly again or to date again. And with that, then it's going to look different than what the world would say. And I do apologize, guys. Remember, I said I hadn't been feeling well. Sorry, I might have to drink a little bit more often. And so I want to kind of jump back in. I wrote a few notes because I want to stay on track for the purpose of the video. And I'm going to try to keep it like right at 30 minutes. But remember the time before I told you that this one is not a quick clip. It's one where you're going to actually sit and learn something. And it is my hope and desire that, you know, whenever whomever listens to this, that when they walk away, either they are able to see their own errors and figure out a way that they can do better, or it just kind of confirms for you like what you may have already been thinking, desiring, wanting to do, and you're able to say, this is what I needed to know, that it was time for me to go. And again, I'm not in any means advocating for divorce, because I know that that is not something that is good. But to go back to my own story, I don't know if I would have survived mentally if I had stayed in my relationship the way that it was. Excuse me. And I don't know if you look at my other videos, I'm always happy and giggling and bubbly. Somewhere in that process of that relationship, I lost myself. And when I say I lost myself, you will lose a portion of yourself when you come into a relationship with someone else. But you should not be transformed so much that people can no longer recognize you. And you should not be transformed so much that people who know you know that something is wrong when they get in your presence. And so that is what I mean when I say you should not lose yourself in the relationship. And I will have to say, with my relationship, some people may ask, well, what made you go forth with him? You know, if you want to know more details, go back to the first video, and then I would say come catch up here. Because if you start here, then you're going to miss a portion of what took place back there. And so one of the things that I thought about, because I asked myself, you know, Mary, what would you say to the people if you were watching this video? Because I watched it back myself. There were some questions that I had, and one was, you know, why didn't you stop? Why didn't you see the red flags and just pause? And again, when you're dating from your broken space, sometimes you don't have the willpower or the ability to make a sound decision that you normally would make if you were healed and whole. And so one of the things that I wrote down is that he was very kind-hearted. Like, he is a very giving person. He will give anybody the shirt off of his back. And he will make sure that other people are taken care of often before him. The downfall to that is when you are married to someone and they have that kind of mindset and they give like that, you have to know that then you are about to be attached to that giving as well. Let me let that sink in. So if you have somebody who is the main caretaker of their family, and when I say their family, I'm talking about their mama, their daddy, their sister, their cousin, their aunties, their uncles, the little brother, the little girl down the street, the little boy that's around the corner. If they are the main person that takes care of everybody else, yes, they will show you a quality that they can take care of you, but that means that you are going to have to suffer through that process with them. And you don't think about it from that perspective. You're like, oh, they so giving, they so this, they so that. And what happened is, because I was in the household with him, he felt like, well, you in the house, so if I take care of the house is taken care of. Well, yes, it is financially, but my social and emotional needs are not being met. My mental capacity is not being stimulated and talked to. And even my physical sometimes, because you are absent from this portion of the relationship. I guess, I kind of had to ask myself when I really look back on it. Sometimes I say, what could I have done differently? And the thing that I could have done differently is I could not have, one, overlooked the red flags, but also I could have made a decision that I was going to live life the way that it was for me, and not give up the things that I felt like I was giving up. And when I say not give up the things that I felt like I was giving up, I love love, and I love relationships and the things that go along with that. And sometimes we find someone that we feel like we can try to build that with them. You feel like if you love a person enough, then they will love you back. And what I have come to learn is that no matter how much you love someone and you pour into them, if they don't have the capacity to give that back to you, you'll never get it. So you can't look at what you give or what you have the capacity to give. I know for myself, my personality, the way that I'm made up, I have a very high emotional capacity to share with other people. I have a very high mental capacity to share with other people. When I give that to other people, it does not deplete me because I have so much of it to give. If you have someone who has a very minimal amount of that and they're giving it to other people, it is going to deplete them because they don't have that to give in the first place. So when it came to he and I said, he was kind-hearted, he would give you the shirt off his back. One of the things that he did that was very impressive to me, during the time that we were dating, my son and I, we usually cut my grass every 2 weeks. I'm real big about my yard, so I work in the yard a lot. Sorry, as we're going into the summer, I might even do some shots outside once this pollen has passed over. That's why I keep breathing hard, because I'm having some issues with that. And so like there would be sometimes on Saturday mornings I would wake up and I hear the lawnmower going and I'm like, wait, I hear the lawnmower, like somebody's cutting their grass, and I could tell it wasn't my neighbor's house, it wasn't the house next door. And I look outside and he would be cutting the grass. He might have heard me say that week that, me and the boys got to get out there and we got to cut the grass. And he would have driven up here from where he lived to actually do that. That's impressive. That says that he was thinking about me. He had to make plans that Friday. He was going to make the decision that Saturday morning he was going to be at my house to make that happen for me. And so, no, it's not that I couldn't have cut the grass. I could have. But to take that off my plate, a lot of times if he came up on a Saturday morning and showed up like that and cut my grass, then it gave me the freedom to go downstairs, and by the time he finished, I would have cooked breakfast, or I would have made him a lunch or something like that. Sometimes if I knew he was coming, I might get his favorite food. He loved turkey necks and turkey wings and He's a country boy, so he liked home cooked food. I remember one time I made him something and I did potatoes in the box. And when he ate, he said this was really good. He said those potatoes, they were out of the box, weren't they? And I said, yeah. He said, I don't like potatoes out the box. I'm a fresh potato man. Like, I want real potatoes. And from that day forward, at that time we were already engaged. From that day forward, I never fed him potatoes out of a box. I bought real potatoes. I peeled them. I cut them up. I made them from scratch. I'm going to let that sit right there. Because, ladies, what you also have to understand is, and this was during our dating process, but all throughout our marriage, I made fresh potatoes for him. So I cooked. And I don't even like to cook necessarily. Like, I like to cook if I'm cooking for my family here and there, something like that. I love when we get together, do it for Thanksgiving. I like to cook a good Sunday meal, but like, I'm just not a big cook. I don't consider that I can cook that well. Now, my children and he often see it differently because they would eat and sop it up off the plate. But, I wanted to cook the way he wanted it cooked. I wanted to serve him the way he wanted it served to him, because that's what made him happy. And in marriage and relationships, oftentimes we forget that that's a key component. I think that I'm going to do a full video about that, like catering to your mate. What is it? What does that look like? It might not be what you like, or it might not be how you like it, but that's what they need. And so for him, he never ate boxed potatoes at my house ever again. Matter of fact, I think I even threw the box away. I don't even think that I kept those because he said he didn't like it. You have to listen. I listen. I pay attention. I'm very focused in on people, when they are in a relationship with me. So that's one of the things. And I talked about the turkey necks and the potatoes. And then I did a few notes from my first video. And again, I want to go back and talk about how making sure that you separate the difference between someone who was not good for you, but might have been good for your family or treated your family well. There were some things that happened in our relationship that when I think about where I was when I met him. So I mentioned in the first video that I had a 1-year-old son at that time. Well, my son is now 16, and his dad and I, we were actually old friends, family friends. Our families knew each other, so there was a very commonality there when we met. And I remember, because he's like my brother's age, and I remember he was saying, man, I don't know about talking to, Mike's little sister, that's different. It's different when you're talking to your homeboy's little sister, because that ain't get ready to fly like you think. But the long and the short, when I found out that I was expecting my son, I had moved in with him. He had convinced me that we were going to get married. Just move in with me, put your house on the market, we'll rent your house out, you can move into my house. And I did. And when I moved in, I was like, this is not going to work. Just it just wasn't going to work. And so I was moving out, and I'll never forget, I was so tired. My sister-in-law said, I hope you're not pregnant. And I said, I hope not either. And I moved out, but I was so tired. And sure enough, I was. So pretty much for that, carrying the child and having him, his dad was kind of there for a few of my appointments and things like that once I made a decision to go forward with that. And that was a really hard decision, because I knew I did not want to have any kids out of wedlock. My oldest son was, I was married to his father. And so once the decision was made, I knew I had to have a place to stay and things of that sort. And so I ended up selling one house and moving into another one. I built another home. And it just was not going to work between he and I. So we had gone our separate ways, and it was just me and my kids. But being a single mother with a small child, and trying to manage a child that's, I think he was getting ready to go to middle school if he wasn't in middle school. He was in middle school because I remember they called my new baby the cute baby. And so, basically, my ex-husband just kind of stepped in. He loved my son. Like, he loved that baby. Every baseball game, every soccer game, every practice, every anything that he needed equipment wise, he was going to buy stuff that I wasn't going to buy. I'm like, why are we getting another baseball bat screen or whatever? He's like, oh, that's what he needs. He's going to be good. And I will say, my 16-year-old is pretty good. Y'all might want to follow him. I think that kid is going somewhere. He's going to do something really great. He's already doing something great, but he has his mindset, and I could see that at a very early age. But anyway, my ex he would be like, no, he needs this, he needs these type of cleats, he needs this kind of bat, he needs this kind of soccer ball, and even to my oldest son, my ex, my son wanted to go to school. He drove me anytime that we needed to hit the road and go check on my son, drop him off, pick him up. He was right there. So there is nothing that I could say negative about that. But the other things that I had to go through in that marriage, character-wise, I would say on a scale from 1 to 10, work-wise, character-wise, a 12. Character-wise of how he saw marriage and relationship and a wife, it was about a 3. So, either you understood that your bills were paid and you here in the house and you should be happy, you got a nice car, you live in a nice home. Yeah. I'm here when I need you, and yeah. But for him, he would tell me, I didn't see my dad treat my mother well. I didn't see my father do nice things to her. And there were times like when I would cry, like if I was upset about something, like when he had the affair, again, we were only about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I don't even think we were 2 years into the relationship, into the marriage. And when he had that affair, like, I was so hurt. Even just to say that just now, like, I felt that down in there. I felt something shiver in me. I was so hurt because I loved him. He was a nice guy, and in my head, I just couldn't figure out why someone would want to hurt him, because he was a gentle spirit. But that component for him, and I heard one of my YouTubers that I really like, and I don't think he's a YouTuber, but he's a guy that's a podcaster and stuff. One of the things I heard him say is that some folk just greedy. Like, you got a beautiful wife, you have a wonderful family, you got a home that is not just a house, but it's a home. Like, we really are laughing and happy, and when you come home on Friday nights, I got the movie night set up, we in front of the TV, your feet propped up, your wife done put you 2 beers in the freezer because he liked his beer cold. And so, because he liked his beer cold, I would tell him, call me when you're on your way home, because I knew if I put them in the freezer, they'd be just like he like them. Have just a little bit of ice popping off in them, And he said to me one time after we got on into the marriage a little later on, he said, you stopped putting beers in the freezer. I said, that's because you stopped coming home. And I got tired of cleaning the beer up that I'm not going to remember. I put the beer in there for you. So I'm not going to remember to go back and get the beer out of the freezer because that's not in there for me. I did that for you. So my thought is that when you get home, that's what you're going to do because that's what he liked to do. So, yeah, sometimes you can have things that are happening in your marriage or your relationship, and you cause that to happen, to stop. You didn't follow through on what needed to be done. One of the things after we separated, he said to me, because I asked him, what could I have done to have been a better wife? Like, what do you feel like you were missing? Because I asked him those questions while we were in the marriage. Like, what can I do? Like, what made you step out on me? So we went to counseling. He said he was just stupid. It was just dumb. You know, they had a connection, this, that, and the other. But when I look at myself and some of the things that I did during the time that we were dating, one of them was like his phone. She would call his phone all the time, and they still had connections because he worked on the side as well. He had a tree business that he did. Well, I won't say on the side, but you know, he cuts trees and things like that. He could fix things for people, carry stuff out from their house, haul things. Like, there are all sorts of things that he could do. And oftentimes I think that the relationship between the two of them was that she would sometimes get the job and she might have a need to have that support. And I guess that kept them connected because he was kind of money hungry. He could make plenty of money, but it went through his hands just like water, just pouring it through there. He always teased me. He said, if I have $1,000, I could give you 100, and I keep 900, and I'm gonna be broke, and you gonna still have $100. He always knew that I was gonna save for a rainy day. I've never been the type of woman that gonna spend every penny. Just because we make it don't mean that we gotta spend it. Because if you're a homeowner, you got a different mindset. If an air conditioner breaks or if the toilet is messed up, you got to call a plumber. You know, when they tell you they need $500 just to come out to run that snake halfway through the yard, you got to be able to go ahead and break them off the $1,000 when they finish. And so my mindset was never to spend every penny that he had. And so I couldn't understand. He had all the things that we had talked about that he wanted when he met me. So for me, it never made sense to me why he felt a need to step out of the marriage. Most men that step out of their marriage, it is because they are not getting what they need at home. The average man that I speak with, and remember I told you guys, I spend quite a bit of time in the barbershop with my short hair. I spend quite a bit of time shooting pool. I spend quite a bit of time bowling. I spend quite a bit of time on the baseball fields. So there are atmospheres that I am deeply surrounded with men. And because of my boys, I've always kept them around men. So I have those conversations. And there was nothing that he could tell me that caused him to step out. You got a beautiful wife, you have a home, you got a good job, you know, she's cleaned up your credit, she got you now where you could buy anything that you want. Like, you was just struggling to make it. Like, he was working just to pay bills when I first met him. I pulled his credit report, went through it, we cleaned up some things, all different state and federal things, and cleaned all that up because we were a unit. We were a team. So what I felt is, if he can go to work every day and you can hit this number, like we sat down, we talked about it, I drew up as a plan. Hey, you hit this number right here every week, and I hit this number on my check every 2 weeks. This is what we can do in this amount of time. As of right now, today, if we had stayed married, 5 years it's been now since we've been separated. If we had stayed married and we had stayed together and we followed the plan that we kind of had mapped out, right now today, our house would probably be paid for. Because before I went on a trip or bought me a new bag, I would have been trying to pay this house off. And for a couple of reasons. Because I knew he was 15 years, 16 years older than me. And two, I'm going into my own retirement years. So I didn't want to carry a lot of debt into that age bracket with us. So you had pretty much everything that you could have ever asked for. But the difference is, it's one thing for people to have everything that they could have asked for, and it's another thing for people to appreciate it. There is not anything that I could have done to change that. And when I walked away from that marriage, I knew that I had given it everything that I could have possibly given. not only between him and the initial woman that he had, but even the women that came after that. And so sometimes people look at you and they say, well, God hates divorce. He does. But because, in my opinion, this just me, I can't go with nobody else. Because marriage to me represents what Christ means to the church, Christ is not going to hurt the church. He may discipline it, he may hold it accountable, but he is not going to abuse it, mistreat it, or walk all over it. Not. And so, from my perspective, my marriage did not represent what Christ represented to the church. I believe that if I were to ever get married again, and I have hopes that I would, but I'm not putting my dependency on that. If God ever opens up that door and I meet someone and we find that, okay, yes, we're going to move down this road and we're exploring this this area of life, I believe that my marriage is going to be a true representation of kingdom marriages. It is going to be a ministry. So it's not going to be just for me and the person that I get married to. It is going to be for us to connect, to bring what we have together in order to assure that kingdom business is handled, that kingdom relationships are strengthened, that kingdom families are strengthened. That then we can even show, because now we got a whole component. Yes, you had the original kingdom family, but now you got the kingdom blended family. What does that look like? How do you blend two totally different families? People that got kids on one side, kids on another side. How do you come together and you as a unit operate and you don't tear down what has already been there? Now it's a whole different structure that has to be built. And that's why it has to be a person who has the mindset that they are working for the kingdom and not just for themselves. This is not a selfish process. Marriage is not just for the people who are in the marriage. It's for the people that are connected to it. And so for me, it was hard for me to minister to young ladies and minister to other wives when I was dealing with what I was dealing with. Like, I was like, don't do it. Don't. If you do, see the red flags and avoid it. And the other thing that I'll say, and I'm going to bring this particular video to an end, but he knew I did not want to go through another divorce. Like, I expressed that very vividly before we got married. He understood that I did not ever want to experience that again. So if you felt like you didn't, like if you feel like you're unhappy, and I had those conversations, I'm okay with us calling this off. I'm okay with us saying that we're not going to do it. I'm okay with us not going forward with it. So it frustrated me even the more, because I feel like he had an opportunity to say no when we both could have just walked away. Like, if he had told me she was still in the picture, I would have been like, dude, you still in love with her. He didn't do that until after we got married. So then I got to be having these conversations. I'm like, you are still in love with this woman. So why did you marry me? Like, why did you even, you knew what I had already been through prior to meeting you. Why would you even put me through that again? Why would you even not agree to the contract? Because that's all marriage is. It's a contract. You agreeing to say that you're going to do it or you're not going to do. And I'm going to say, people, you can say what you want to say. People's credit speaks volume to their character. I'm going to let that sit right there. People who care about their credit, it speaks to their character. Now, does that mean that everybody that has good credit got good character? No, it does not. But when you are concerned with that, you're concerned with the contract. You made a contract with a creditor to take care of something. I've had contracts with creditors that I was not able to pay them during the time that I was going through my situations, and even a few bills that I'm still paying on now. But because I owed those people that money, I paid it. It was an old bill. I contacted them and said, I still owe you $200. I'm going to set this up on a payment plan, and I can pay you $50 over the next 4 months, and that way this right here is covered. So it's not about how much somebody makes, it's about the core of the person. Go back and look at that. It's on the video. Where did I talk about the core? Yeah, it's in the first video. But the core of a person. You have to look at whether people get credit and they just walk away and leave people out there and they like, oh no, I'm not going to pay that. Because they're going to do you the same way in the relationships. They're going to look at it the same way. Oh no, I'm not going to pay that. Oh, I'm not accountable to that. So this is part 2. Don't date in your broken space. Heal before you deal. I got a couple of more things that I want to share, and I know this video might not have been as tightly knitted as the previous, but I will come back with a couple of other things that I want to share, and we'll see. I don't know. I thought that I might go to 5 parts with this, but like today I wasn't feeling it as much, but I still felt like I needed to get through part 2, and then maybe part 3 will be a little bit different. All right, you guys, tell me what you think. I want you to click like, share with your friends, and subscribe. Have a good day.